Future Warriors, welcome back to Hello Warrior. I'm your co-host Iman.
And I am your co-host Dennis, and we have an amazing episode for you today where we're going to get all the insider scoops on how to apply to the University of Waterloo and all the admissions information that you need, which will be presented by my former co-host Kristin.
Kristin's going to bust some common myths about applying to university and let you know how to apply to a university and also answer some very commonly asked questions.
And we'll be chatting with some current students on all things the admission information form, also known as the AIF, and tips on how to apply to our school, and even looking at some of the requirements that are required within the faculties and so much more.
And without further ado, let's get into the episode.
Yo, yo, yo! And we're back at it with another Hello Warrior episode. This time, I'm still your co-host, Dennis.
And I'm your co-host, Iman.
But this time, we have a very, very special guest because you used to be one of my co-hosts, actually my first co-host with the podcast, Kristin. You want to introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone.
Excited
to be back. Excited to be on this side of it. Nice and cozy up in here on this chilly day. I am Kristin. I work in admissions. I flip back and forth between admissions and recruitment. I do a lot, particularly with out-of-province students and international, but also super familiar with Ontario. And very excited to be here today. I'll take a swig of my coffee to get
warmed up.
ready.
Get warmed up. It's a little chilly.
It's so cool.
It's a little nippy outside. A little chilly.
All right, now I'm ready. Hit me, metaphorically.
Super quick, though. You graduate from University of Waterloo.
I did.
What program?
I won't give you the year because that's unnecessary.
That's unnecessary.
But I graduated from Honors Arts and I majored in anthropology and
Nice.
psychology. I'll tell you, I started in science and then I took an anthropology course and I was like, oh yeah, this is more my speed. And so I flipped. So to anyone who thinks that they enter into a program and they're cemented for the rest of their life, nope.
Not at all. Lots of movement, lots of mobility.
Loved it.
I'm
All right,
also
Kristin.
in honors arts, so
Ooh.
same team.
Right?
Yeah.
Same team. Yeah. Forget Dennis.
I was science. You left me for the other team.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was all the labs, man. Too many.
There's a lot of labs.
I was sick of it.
All right, Kristin, I think we'll get right into debunking some myths, some
Love
admissions
it.
myths at Waterloo. So a lot of these kind of come from Reddit or just things that we see online. But one of the most common ones that we get just on the road and everywhere is you need a 95 plus average to get into the University of Waterloo.
Woo!
Myth
Yeah.
or truth?
Thankfully, it's a myth. And in fact, not only is it a myth, I would say that myth applies to like 3-4 programs at Waterloo compared to the ones we offer. Certainly if you're looking into like computer science, software engineering, biomedical engineering, some of those programs, yes, I would say you got to be way up there. But for majority of our programs, we're looking at like around 80%.
Yeah.
I would even tell you new this year for environment, we're looking at high 70s. So absolutely majority of our programs not needing a 95. I love this myth because it's so easy to say it's incorrect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Never trust Reddit.
Never.
Never. Waterloo is only good for the engineering and computer science programs.
How offensive. As a two arts
Two arts
people.
yeah.
And I think this is a really common myth because schools get known, like universities get known for particular programs. And then there's this assumption that if you're known for that, that's all you're good for. As you folks know, Waterloo is a comprehensive university, so we offer arts, environment, all kinds of different programs. I think when you get particularly well known for something, like, so for example, engineering at Waterloo is unique because it's direct entry, it's co-op only. That's one reason why it gets well known and why it's sought after. Same with computer science, there's some real advantages there. But that being said, that doesn't mean there's a lack of resources applied to our arts programs. Or environment or science or health. In fact, some of those programs actually rank really well when you look at rankings, which, kind of a controversial topic. But no, absolutely. If we're a school that's well known for certain things, that ability and that strength in academics is applied to every program, regardless of what it is.
Yeah. That's a great explanation.
Thank you for busting that
practice.
myth. Yeah. Thank you for busting that myth. As an art student, I like
know.
to,
Yeah.
I know.
Okay, so now let's get into how to apply to university. So let's talk about OUAC a little bit, which is the Ontario University Application Center.
There
Yeah,
you go.
love it.
Yep.
There you go.
Got it.
World of acronyms.
Yeah. So how does sorry, Dennis, the notice final offer. How do you want me to ask that?
So I guess like in a way, like, could you take us through the process of like applying to the OUAC, starting the process all the way to like final offer? What can students expect?
Okay.
What's the process? What's the kind of, let's say, general timeline?
Sure.
Just what students can kind of expect.
Okay.
That's what I was trying to go for.
Sorry.
That's like-
I saw the pointer and then sorry.
Dennis is confused. Naturally. No, absolutely. So we'll speak generically and I'll add in like a little tidbit if you're in Ontario versus outside of Ontario. But essentially applications now open kind of late September, early October. For Ontario students, now you don't need a PIN, which is just a bunch of jargon to say you get to apply when everyone else does. But essentially the application for universities will open around that timeline, early fall. Once you apply, you can apply to 3 universities. This is like the base application fee is about $156, give or take tax and so on. But you apply to 3 universities for $156. After that, if you want to apply to more programs or more schools, it's usually around $50 per additional application. So certainly like you could apply to 5 or 6, totally up to you. One thing I'll note when you end up applying, Waterloo is a school where like you could apply to Waterloo 3 different times to 3 different programs. So you could apply to arts, you could apply to science, and you could apply to environment. And one unique thing about Waterloo is that when you apply, you're often asked to rank your applications. Waterloo doesn't care what you're ranking. So if something is ranked number 1, that doesn't mean your second choice program will look at that and say, well, we won't give an offer because we gave the first choice offer. Not at all. You could get 3 different offers from Waterloo, hypothetically. Some schools might care about rankings, so that's something to pay attention to if you are applying to different schools. But anyway, I digress. So you apply for $156, you submit your applications. If you're an Ontario student, for the most part, grade-wise, you're pretty much done. In the sense that your school automatically sends grades to us through the Ontario Application Center. So a lot of students kind of panic about like, well, what about my midterm grades and whatever? If you're an Ontario school, we call them loads, but essentially it's batches of grades from the Ontario Application Center every so often. So that part is fine. If you are applying to a program that ever has supplementary application pieces, so the admissions information form, which we'll talk about, or interviews or anything, that is a piece you have to keep your eye on because there will be specific and fairly strict deadlines for that. Now, the key there is that everything is always communicated to students via email. So again, check your junk box. I find that's like a place where students get caught up because they don't realize it will go there. But essentially after you apply, you get an acknowledgement email. It lets you know of any important dates depending on the program. And again, if you're in Ontario, you're just rolling through making sure you get those supplementary things completed. If you're an outside of Ontario student, depending on where you're applying from, you will need to upload your grades to your Quest account. Quest is just our student services portal. Every school has a different lingo or name for it. But basically, we take any transcript. It doesn't have to be an official document. It can be like your school gave you a report card, you scanned it and uploaded it to Quest. We'll use anything like that. But if you're outside of Ontario, that's something to keep in mind. We do need you to either send your grades or upload them, whatever.
Yes.
Then starting, typically, we might do an early round in December for our partnered faculties of arts, environment, health, and science. But for the most part, we're looking at making offers starting in that January time period, going all the way to May. For our partnered faculties, again, arts, environment, health, and science, we make rolling offers, meaning that essentially once we get enough grade information, and if you're making the cutoff, say it's low 80s, you get an offer from us. You can get an offer kind of any time within that period from January to May. Where it differs is for engineering and math. They do bulk offers, basically meaning like they accumulate as much grade info as they possibly can, along with any supplementary forms or whatever. And then they release offers at one point. Then they hold again to the final round in May. May is, I know, late for students, but you will have, as an Ontario student anyway, you have the ability to confirm until June 1st, meaning that like that's when all Ontario schools need to know if you're coming. So you will always hear from us before that deadline. So something important to note. The other thing I'll say is that if you get an offer, fantastic. we will never leave your application unanswered. So if you apply and you're thinking, I haven't heard anything yet, have they forgot about me? You will hear a decision from us, positive or negative, hopefully positive, but we will always turn over that application for you.
Nice.
And then starting June is when you confirm. You say, yep, I'm coming to Waterloo for honor science, for example. Once you've confirmed, usually there are conditions on your offer, meaning like you need to say finish out, get your high school diploma, and maintain an average of usually 80%. Those conditions, again, if you're in Ontario, we get your final transcripts automatically. And so we just check it off on your Quest account saying, yep, the student made it, no problem. If you're, say, an out-of-province student or international, we will need your official final documents. And again, this is things that can be mailed in and so on. Some can be done electronically. But usually, as like an admissions officer myself, I'm looking at my students out of province or whatever to reach out and say, hey, you've completed your conditions and so forth. But once you've confirmed your offer and you've met your conditions, you're basically ready to rock. And I want to
Ready to rock.
Conditions, yeah. Conditions too, like if you were admitted at like a 96, very rarely, if not ever, conditions are like that high.
Yeah.
They're always lower. Like usually for engineering, it might be around 85%.
Right.
Is the average you got to maintain. It's not like I can't write an exam and not do well. I mean, you got to like do kind of well, but like it's not 95.
Yeah. It's a little bit lower. And then let's say like after you apply to the OUAC, when can students expect an email back? Is it like a couple days? Is it like 3 to 5 business days? Is it like a week?
Oh, business days. Yeah. Usually it's within about a week.
Okay.
Depending on when you apply is when we like run an extract to say these are our new apps, but I would expect it in around a week. Yeah. And again, whenever in doubt, check that junk mail.
Yeah.
Often she's hiding it there.
Yeah.
And can you just remind us of the application deadline, let's say for all of our partner faculties as well as engineering?
Yeah. I'm going to throw it back to Dennis. Dennis, what's our application deadline?
Testing me here, huh? So for all of our faculties, let's say outside of the Faculty of Engineering, applications to OUAC have to be in no later than January 31st. And then if there is documentation, it's like February 14th. But then for engineering, your application to the OUAC has to be due or submitted by January 15th at the latest. And then all documents, including the AIF, have to be submitted January 31st, no later.
Bam. Yeah. I'll give you a B+.
B+. I mean, that's true because we have there's the SAFAA and that's like Feb 14th and just other things there.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
The nice thing is, again, like I say this so many times because I think it's a point of anxiety for students. If you apply to AFM or accounting and finance, and then you apply to, say, engineering or whatever, everything is always communicated to you via email. Yeah. And so like these important deadlines, like they come to you by email. And like Dennis, you said, it's important. Like I think sometimes students wait till the last minute. They're like, oh, it's not due to the 31st. So like on the 30th, like why do that? If you know where you want to go or whatever, just send it in so you don't have that anxiety peaking.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Because then if the deadline passes, some of our programs are pretty strict. Yeah. And if it's gone, it's gone.
Yeah. You also just want to be cautious of like if there's an uploading error or something. Yeah.
Sometimes that happens.
Yeah.
Spotty Wi-Fi. Who knows?
Yeah. Never know.
And then I guess we chatted about how to apply or the process of applying as an Ontario student as well as a non-Ontario student or what we call non-OSS.
Yeah.
But what about, or what's the process for, let's say, international students?
Totally. So for international students, we're usually looking at, so the same thing starts, you apply 3 different programs, 3 different schools, whatever. After that, we're looking for grade information that you will have to upload on your Quest account. The caveat I always say to students is like, they get nervous because they're like, well, I'm applying and I haven't completed grade 12 yet, but you want my courses. Exactly. So it's basically as soon as you apply, upload a transcript of whatever you got. If it's just completed grade 11s and the start of grade 12, like we see that you're enrolled, upload it. Like might as well. As you get more grade information, you can continue to upload. It's not like you can only upload a document once to that school and it's done. You can technically upload a document a day. Don't recommend it because there's no need. And it's a lot to look through on our end. But if as soon as you have like potentially say you get the end or you get midterm grades in grade 12 from your first semester, if that's how your school is set up, upload those then next. But it's super simple in that way. when you upload, like I said, these don't have to be official documents. If it's a paper doc that you're scanning in and then uploading it, or it's electronic, like your school sends you a version or whatever, we will take them. They don't have to be official. And so then that can help time-wise to get documents faster.
Yeah.
And when you're on your Quest account to upload documents, it's very simple. They actually have really fantastic, like, how to do this step-by-step on our website. But usually, again, you're going into the Documents tab on your Quest account. You're then finding the school you want to upload for. You click on it, and then it literally says upload. So super simple.
Super easy.
Awesome. Very straightforward.
Hopefully.
And all the due dates are the same for them as well. And
You got it.
yeah, perfect. Sweet.
Awesome. So we've talked a lot about grades.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about how that admissions average is calculated.
Totally. You're swinging that coffee around.
I
Just
know.
be
Yeah.
careful.
I know.
I'm getting
You know
nervous
what?
now.
I've drank all of it. If you watch through the episode, you can see me drinking
Okay,
it.
because
Or maybe, I don't know, maybe I'm drinking it when the camera's on you, so they won't catch
that's
it.
probably why.
But
It was a little topsy-turvy there.
Yeah,
for a
it
second.
was, it was.
I got nervous.
maybe
Yeah.
we should set it down.
So admissions averages.
Mhm.
So again, it's so funny when you answer these questions because there's always like the straightforward answer, and then it's like, well, what about grade 11? We'll get there. But
Okay.
essentially, an admissions average is your top 6, usually, depending on if you're an international student. Sometimes it's top 5, sometimes it's even less, just depends. But usually, we're speaking about top 6 courses, including any required courses. So that's where it can get a little different. So if you're applying to honors arts, for example, the only required course is English. After that, we're going to take your other 5 highest, typically in Ontario, grades U or M courses. And if you're in like British Columbia, which is one of our second biggest provinces for apps, for example, or applications, we're taking 5 academic courses outside of that English. Comparison, if you're applying to science, we're looking at English, your 2 math courses, whether it's pre-calculus and calculus, and then 2 sciences, for example. Then we'll take 1 other to complete that 6. That's your admissions average. When it comes into things like grade 11s, if we're trying to get an offer out sooner, we will use grade 11s if they're high and they can fulfill, like, say you're taking chemistry in second semester, but you took chemistry in grade 11 and it's a good mark. Sometimes we'll use that to get that offer out sooner. But again, if you're worried, you're thinking my grade 11s aren't that awesome, don't worry. We'll just wait then. We'll just wait till we have enough good grade 12 information to get that offer out. You would never be, say, denied on grade 11s.
Yeah. It can never like hurt you or penalize you from grade 11 marks.
We're
by
literally
themselves.
using them to get it out sooner if we can.
Okay. Well, just because I guess I didn't know this when I was in high school, so don't rely on your grade 11 marks, because if all of those are your top 6, those aren't the ones that are being taken.
No, exactly.
Okay,
For sure, we
gotcha.
prefer grade 12.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Especially for engineering and math. Those are very much looking for grade 12s. And that's part of the reason why it's a little delayed, I guess,
Exactly.
when offers kind of come out. So
Exactly. Because if you think of it like math, for example, pays a lot of attention to math courses, and so therefore calculus. Calculus is almost always in second semester for students because they're taking advanced functions first semester. Oftentimes they're going to wait till they have a calculus midterm mark to receive an offer for students. Yeah. Again, there's always nuances, but that is often, like you said, why we wait till May is because we're getting great info.
Gotcha. Good to know. Sorry.
I'll take
Take
it.
a big breath in.
I know. Sorry.
I know you talked about this a couple times already of like how many programs that you can apply to when you apply to the University of Waterloo. So maybe just talking about that again, and then how many programs can you apply to in the Faculty of Engineering?
Yeah, Dennis wants to throw me a little curveball. Yeah, so exactly. You can apply to 3.
Yeah.
And you can't apply to more than 3, but you can apply to 3. The caveat is engineering. But talking about the 3 programs again, Waterloo doesn't care about rankings. So if you apply and say you do engineering as first choice, computer science second, science as third, and you really do like computer science and you're like, I don't want to rank it second if it doesn't affect anything.
Yeah.
You could very well, again, get an offer to all 3 and then have to pick which one you want. The caveat is engineering, but in a good way. So you can't apply to more than 1 engineering program at Waterloo. You can only apply to 1, but that's because you can put a second choice or a backup or whatever lingo you want to use on your admissions information form.
Yeah.
And what's nice, I always consider this is like a free choice because you're not having to pay an extra $50 for this.
Yeah.
It's included in the admissions information form. But that's why you can only apply to one on the Ontario University Application Center website.
Yeah.
Okay. So,
Now, I know this is one of your favorite topics as an
Wow.
admissions officer, but AP and IB courses.
Wow.
So students in high school that are taking IP or IB and AP, is there any admissions advantage sort of associated with taking those courses or classes?
No. No, but I'll tell you that, I mean, they're great preparation for university, like the curriculums and the content they cover. But there's no admissions, I'll say there's no admissions average bump.
Yeah.
Because that's something that students in other schools, if you're in, for example, if you're taking an IB course or an international baccalaureate diploma, they might adjust. If you get an 82 in that course, they might adjust it up to be an 85, for example. Waterloo doesn't do that. We treat that 82% the same as if you took calculus and got an 82. So there's no advantage in that way. We look at everybody the same. But depending on the program you're applying to and their policy around transfer credits, if you write exams in some of these courses and obtain a certain grade, we will consider that for transfer credit. So that's kind of I would say a bonus, depending if you want to look at it that way. But they're awesome preparation. So it's not like when students are like, oh, my time was wasted. No, it wasn't. We just don't put it in the average.
And then kind of just feeding off of that. And I know I'm only asking this just because I get this question on the road quite often. So it might be one that's a little bit more on the more, like, let's say advanced, or like it's a deep question kind of thing. But
Dennis is so deep. I'm ready.
But
Blow me away.
let's say if you're in IB, sometimes there's situations where either schools don't offer a course or they don't allow you to take a course just because of how strict your schedule is.
Yeah.
So for instance, like you might not be able to take physics during your normal,
For sure.
sort of like, let's say day school is kind of what we like to say.
Yeah.
So students that want to apply to, let's say, faculty of engineering, but end up taking physics or some other required course during like summer because to fulfill that requirement, is there any penalty associated with that?
This is an awesome question because I think the overall theme that I want students to always remember is like we're actually trying to admit students. I know it doesn't always feel like that depending on the program. And so when you see things like repeated course penalties, taking courses outside of day school, we're not looking to apply those if there's a circumstance in which it's warranted. So that's a great example. So in the IB program or the International Baccalaureate, usually it's structured in such a way that you can only take 2 sciences. And if so, sometimes the way you select them, you might have selected biology and physics for your sciences. And then all of a sudden you're applying to Waterloo Engineering and you're like, oh my gosh, I need chemistry. What do I do? That's where there isn't a penalty applied. So if you have to enroll in chemistry, like completing it outside of your regular day school, because you need it for admissions, no problem there. Absolutely. Again, it's the whole idea that like we don't want to apply the penalty if you're actually going above and beyond in that sense.
Yep. And sorry, speaking about the penalty, because I actually didn't add it in my notes at all, but I think once I asked that question, I was like, we definitely should be talking about this. For sure. So if you're applying to any of the, let's say, any of the 5 faculties outside of engineering, is there any penalty for taking summer school courses or like night school or online school or online courses?
Yeah. The only 2 faculties that look in this in detail are engineering and math. Those are the 2. And if you think of it in terms of competitiveness and so on, they're looking at getting your averages right on the money. And so sometimes when it comes to stuff like that, there will be penalties applied depending on the reason why you do that. Others, so science, arts, not engineering, environment and health, absolutely no penalty. We'll take, if you repeat a course, we typically take whatever's higher. If it's in summer school, we don't care. No problem. We got lots of space for students, and so that's no problem. For the other 2, yes. And the penalty is different depending on engineering versus math. But the key takeaway there is that we really recommend like doing your best in the first attempt. And if your first attempt is above a 70%, like say you want to retake advanced functions because you only got a 78 and you're like, that's not high enough. For example, in engineering, it's way better to not repeat that course. Same with math, honestly, too. stick with that 78%. Hopefully you do well in your other courses to boost your average.
Yeah. And what is that penalty typically?
So engineering, if you retake a course and it's above 78%, they'll still take
70%.
70. Sorry, I'm getting lost in my own scenarios. If it's above 70%, they'll just take that first attempt anyway. So they'll disregard if you retake a second time. If it's below 70, then usually what happens is they will calculate your average and take 5% off overall. So depending on how that works with the retake, 5% comes off your overall average. And so if you think of it, how much you need to retake that course, like it just math-wise doesn't work out because 5% is quite a bit off an overall average. It can definitely take a student from being competitive to not competitive.
Yes.
Math, on the other hand, if you retake a course, certainly in their required courses, English, Year 2 maths, advanced functions and calculus, it can really affect your chances of being admitted. And overall, it's not worth it. Don't retake it.
Good to know.
And so we've already talked about this a little bit, but I just wanted to dive into it to make it super clear. What is the admissions information form and how is it changing this year?
Yeah. So we call it the AIF most commonly.
Yeah.
I almost got lost for a second.
Were you about to say
yeah. I was like, don't oversay that out loud. This is like our version of like a personal profile or essays or whatever. It's just Waterloo's spin on it. And how it works is, so after you've applied to Waterloo, you get your acknowledgement email, you set up your Quest account or your student profile. You have access to what's called the admissions information form. And this is specific to students in engineering and math this year, only for engineering and math. So if you're applying to arts, science, health, environment, you don't actually have to do the admissions information form at all. But for these two faculties, you get access to it. And essentially, it's just a couple of short answer questions about yourself. So this is where we look at more than grades comes in. For example, math will ask about math contests and so on. Engineering will have questions specific to their programs as well. Essentially, then when we make offers of admissions, it's based on this admissions information form plus your grades. This year, it is changing because before we would have scholarship information included on this for arts and environment and engineering are too close to me.
Yeah.
For arts, environment, health, and science, they used to have scholarship information included in this, and so you could fill it out as an applicant. This year, they're taking that scholarship piece out, meaning that if you want a scholarship, likely there'll be an extra application specific to your faculty. All of that's online. So again, don't worry if you're not memorizing everything I say, but you do not fill out the admissions information form for those faculties. You only need to fill it out for math and engineering. And so that's unique this year. The scholarship info is coming out and it's only for those students.
Nice. And what should students be putting on their AIF?
Honestly, I always say a couple of things. So there is a character limit, which I think trips students up. We're not looking for essays. We're looking for short answers. Anything that you feel is relevant to your offer or to your application to Waterloo. I think students get caught up in the trap of, if I'm applying to computer engineering, I have to be putting stuff down that's relevant to computer engineering. Not at all. If you have had a part-time job, for example, for all of high school, because that's how you're going to pay for university, that's just as relevant as if you were part of the robotics club. And I always say to students, think about what you're saying. What are the transferable skills that you want to highlight in the admissions information form that then will transfer through to university studies? So part-time job, you have responsibility, etc. That's what we're looking for. Anything that you think is relevant to your application.
Sweet. Pretty much anything. Sports, clubs,
Anything.
Yeah.
competitions.
You want to play chess? Like, respect to that.
Respect to that.
Yeah.
Wouldn't be me.
Get involved now so you have something to put on your AIF.
Yeah. And the other thing I'll mention, because you triggered it in my brain, when students find out we look at stuff other than grades, they like panic and they join like 12 clubs. And that's just a little obvious in the sense that like you're thinking it's quantity, not quality, where again, it's for sure a lot of it is quality. If it's, again, if you have to be at home as a caregiver because of your circumstances, that's just as relevant and just as important.
Awesome. And then just kind of off that topic of like AIF and talking about supplemental pieces and applications, what are some of the other supplemental factors that may need to be required for certain programs. So let's say Faculty of Engineering, we need the AIF, but what else do we need for engineering?
Yeah, so they have an optional online interview. I'll mention that I like to put optional in air quotations because you don't have to do it, but I really recommend doing it because it's another way for them to get to know you, but also it really, unless it's really far out there, really only can benefit your application. So for engineering, they have an optional online interview. It takes like 20 minutes to complete, and I'll say it's not live, it's recorded. So we're not sitting behind a screen staring at you. What happens is that you answer 2 questions. One is often about like why Waterloo engineering or something like that. Another is say like a life skill question. Typically you get like a minute or so to deliberate and 2 minutes to answer. But again, it's like 20 minutes to do, and I highly recommend it. It can really make a difference if it's between you and another candidate. Sometimes that can be a swaying factor. I'll mention specifically for software engineering, there is like a software component to it, meaning you have to have like either taken a course in computer science or have exposure on your own time if your school doesn't offer it. That this year is also going to take place on the same platform that the interview is.
Okay.
So when you apply to engineering, you'll get an email from, it's called Kira, from that platform saying this is where your interview is located. If you have also applied to software engineering and need to demonstrate or list that experience specific to software, it will also be included on this Kira platform. And that's new this year, just so it's simpler than a student trying to declare it on their admissions information form.
Gotcha.
How about we cycle to Faculty of Math? So math contests.
Yeah.
Are they required? How are they assessed? Do your
Totally.
scores matter? Should you do them?
Yeah. So they're not required. And again, I use air quotations because while they're not required, I highly recommend doing them.
Yeah.
One reason is that it's a good indicator to see if you actually like math in the way that it's studied at university.
Yeah.
Like it's good for exposure because math at university is different than math at the high school level for sure. But the admissions department in math loves to see students that take part in their contests for that exposure. And again, it's not the scores that are going to matter when it comes to admissions. They matter for scholarships. Certain scholarships will look at it, but it's way better to be exposed to them and write them. At the very least, I encourage you to write them in your grade 12 year, whether it's the Euclid, the Canadian Senior Math Contest, the Canadian Computing Contest, or all of them, doesn't matter. That's a really good thing for your application. It just shows initiative. But again, it's not required. But if you can, I highly recommend it.
Yeah. And then do your scores or participating in these tests also factor into scholarship consideration?
They certainly do.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. There's some really nice scholarships that come out of the Faculty of Math based on these contests.
Awesome. I think these last 2 we already touched on.
Yeah, I think the one that I just wanted to talk about briefly was the portfolio requirement for the faculty, School of Architecture. So you're just speaking a little bit to that.
Yeah. I think architecture is such a cool program.
Yeah.
And so I always pretend like, oh my gosh, if I would have applied for whatever I submitted, nothing good. But yeah, so our architecture, so it's technically housed in the Faculty of Engineering, but it's its own program. And in that, it has its own requirements. And one thing I will note is that the admissions information form, while I said it's required for engineering, it is not used for admission in architecture.
Okay.
So keep that in mind. You don't have to fill it out. Because instead of that, they're going to look at portfolios. And how their admissions process works, it's kind of like I describe it like hurdles in a way. So the thing they'll look at first are your grades. And if you meet the grade cutoff, you're then potentially invited for an interview. And the interview is where a portfolio comes in. Now, for any student that's not in Ontario or even far away in Ontario, these can be virtual, so don't panic about that. But the portfolio consists of like, say, 10 to 20 different pieces. And the key here is that it does not need to be building related. Specifically, like there's software taught in high schools called CAD. That's like an architecture software, and students often think they should have taken that course and then submitted those buildings. I would actually tell you that they prefer to see other stuff because their view is that they're going to teach you how to do that when you get there. It's way more about who is a creative student. And so like we've had students submit photography, There's been students who have crafted their own pieces of music.
Yeah.
Like it can literally be anything. Fantastic, like sketchbooks are included and so on.
Pottery even.
Oh, like and phenomenal stuff.
Yeah.
And so all of that is considered. And if you then make it to the interview, they'll talk about your portfolio questions like what were you thinking when you created this piece and so on. After that, there's a short little critical thinking and critical writing piece. It's called the précis. Again, not very big, small, and it's literally like you get a paragraph or a couple paragraphs about, say, an article. They're going to ask you to distill it down to a few sentences. What was the main point this author was trying to make? And then if you make it to the interview piece, grades are left behind. That's why it's like a hurdle. Once you're over that hurdle, it's done. It's based on the interview and the précis.
Yeah. With the portfolio, right? So with the portfolio, like we submit or we accept like a lot of pieces from a whole bunch of different ranges. But if you can if you can put in anything that's like 3D related, that will be a little bit of like, I guess preferred is a good word to use.
Love that.
But yeah, it's preferred if you can do 3D. So even just like sculptures or.
Out of curiosity, I had some friends who took like fashion. Could you submit like a sweater you made?
Yeah,
okay.
You can do fashion pieces as well.
Wow.
Yeah.
They one year had a student who like did dance. That was hers, and so she did dance. Like it's literally, essentially, it's anything that can like fit through a door.
Wow.
Cakes. Like there was one student that was super into decorating cakes one year. But yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Like
that's so cool.
Anything to show like that depth and creativity.
Yeah.
Do you think this, if I made this could get me?
It would be so considered.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. Very close. Yeah. Right.
And then just the last one is the SAFAA.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the School of Accounting and Finance, if you're applying to programs like accounting and financial management, sustainability and financial management, they have an additional piece besides grades that they look at for admissions, and this is different than the admissions information form. Again, that is not used for admissions for these programs. It is the SAFAA, which is essentially, it's like a trade assessment, an online interview. Usually they say budget around an hour and 20 minutes to complete. Likely you'll complete it quicker, but what it is, again, not live, recorded. But it's the first part, it's 2 parts. The first part is a mixture of like video answers and then written answers. The second piece is called a trade assessment. It's like 78 questions, but it's not like you're writing them out. It's very quick. Like you're supposed to answer them how you feel within a second, like leadership versus extroversion versus like all these different literally trade assessments. So that piece goes really quick. But it's that plus your grades that determine who gets an offer. Again, that one has some video components. Tip is dress for success, because we can see you. Ideally, you look reasonably presentable and like your background isn't moving on. But it all depends. That is a piece to it. But it's a little longer than the engineering one. But again, and it's specific to any School of Accounting and Finance programs.
Nice.
True. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Kristin. I think that's the end of our interview. We got so much great information, the insider scoop into all things applying. So if you're applying to the University of Waterloo, you know exactly what to do. And even if you're not, you still have a pretty good grasp on the entire process. So thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for being back on the podcast. I'm sure.
Thank you.
Hopefully we'll have you back for season 3 as well.
I love it.
There you go.
But yeah, that's the end of the interview. So
yeah, thanks Kristin, and just being that insider, the admissions insider. Appreciate
Thanks, buddy.
We'll see you soon.
See you soon.
Bye.
Welcome back, Future Warriors. We are back with our special segment. We got a lot of really great information from Kristin, but now we're here with 2 current students to give us a little more of an inside look into what exactly the applying process is like. And before we jump right in, you'll notice that I'm missing a chair and a person. I'm missing my co-host Dennis today. That is because he is out on the road going to university fairs and high schools. We actually have a picture of him popping up at a booth at a university fair right now. So he wasn't able to make it today. But you might see him out on the road sometime soon. So that's something to look out for. And so today we have 2 really amazing students here with us. Do you guys want to introduce yourselves really quickly?
I can start. My name is Tochi. I'm in 2A mechatronics engineering. My pronouns are she, her. And yeah.
Awesome.
Hi everyone, my name is Siya. I'm in my 3A term in the AFM program. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm super excited to be here today.
Awesome. And so you both kind of relatively recently went through the application process. So tell me a little bit about that. Was Waterloo your top number one choice?
I guess I could start.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Waterloo was my number
Okay,
one.
awesome.
I think it's mainly because the school that I went to, a lot of students went to Waterloo for engineering.
Okay.
And so I was like, oh, okay, I guess I can look at Waterloo as like a starting point for like what uni I want to go to. And then I kind of looked into like what programs they had briefly, and then I saw mechatronics, kind of saw what it had. Thought it would be really cool because I was really interested in robotics at the time. I still am, not that I'm not anymore. And so kind of worked, I think I started with, I want to go to Waterloo. Then I worked through, okay, what programs do they have? And then I was like, oh, I really like their cohort system. That was I think that was one of the biggest things for me because I've always been in a really small school. So I was like, okay, I like that it's still going to be small because I'm really used to that kind of environment. And I kind of built off from there.
Yeah.
And then realized that I needed to apply to other schools in case I didn't get in. So that's when I started picking other universities to apply to, but not like too many.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
But you ended up here, so
Yeah.
no worries.
Yeah, for me as well, Waterloo AFM was one of my top choices. I had also applied to a couple other programs in Waterloo, including the double degree, math CPA, but AFM was my top choice.
Okay.
From high school itself, I was determined that I wanted to do something related to accounting and finance, especially after taking the accounting and business courses at high school. I was determined. And something that really brought me close to Waterloo was their co-op program. AFM has mandatory co-op, and which leaves you with like 16 months of experience following graduation, and also a direct entry to Masters of Accounting, which could essentially prepare you for, we have chartered professional accountancy, so that can prepare you for the exam in order to get that specialization.
Oh, cool. I didn't know that.
That was a great deal.
Wow, that is a great deal. Okay, and so how many universities do you think you both like applied to in total?
4.
4? Okay.
4. Yeah, I applied to 4.
Yeah, mine were ranging somewhere around 5 to 7. I can't exactly remember, but
Yeah.
I did have like high-end universities as well as like some of the middle, and then also backups just in case.
Yeah, so did I. I think I had like 5 or 6. I was like, I probably don't need this money, but it's stressful. But no worries, everyone got it to their top choice. So congratulations. Okay, so you guys are both in you're in AFM and you're in engineering, so there's a lot of supplementary applications that go into that. It's not as, I'm in art, so it's kind of easy for me. I kind of just, and I'm an Ontario student, so I kind of just submitted like I didn't even have to submit a transcript, so it was really easy. But you guys went through a little bit more of a difficult process. Do you want to tell me a little bit about the supplementary applications that you had to go through?
Do you want to start this time?
Yeah, sure. Back in the day, we called it the AFMA. So for the AFMA, it basically had a bunch of questions related to our personality, like very open-ended. And also there was one related to like what we might think about sustainability, because it's such a recurring issue, especially in finance opportunities. So we had a pre-recorded interview where we were able to prepare and like just short 1 minute or 1 minute and 30-second long responses for each question. Also, I believe there was a personality trait assessment, kind of like how it really felt like applying for a job. You know how they have it when applying for jobs. Yeah, it felt really similar to that. But overall, I think it was great because the admissions officer was really able to understand who we were, because I honestly don't think our transcript and a written response does justice to who we really are.
Yeah.
So I personally really loved the AFMA.
That's a great point. Do you have any tips? You mentioned the SAFAA. Do you have any tips for students who might be completing that this year?
Definitely try to make it seem natural. Don't practice it a lot. I know something I did was stressing a lot over it and practicing a lot, but honestly, the admissions officer just wants to see who you are and not what you're trying to be or who you're trying to be. So I think if you just go in with a smile, of course they post the questions online a couple months in advance, so it would be nice to know what questions are there, and you can mentally prepare yourself as to like, oh, which experiences do I want to be talking about. But I don't think you should create a script per se, and I think you should just stick to what you want to talk about and speak from your heart. That's my biggest advice.
That's great advice. And do you have any tips as well?
Yeah, so it's not as detailed as the AFM, but yeah, so all engineering programs, you have to do the AAF. And then at the time I was applying, the interview for everyone was strongly recommended. Online interview, the questions aren't posted. What we have is there's like a practice session. So there's 2 questions that you're answering. You get like 20 to 30 seconds to kind of like prep your answer, but they're like interview questions. Like, tell me about a time you showed initiative in this, or tell me about a time that you so-and-so, XYZ. So, and then there was like one like, oh, why do you want to be at Waterloo? Obviously worded a bit differently, but something like that.
Yeah.
I honestly practiced a ton with that. I kind of had a couple of experiences in mind, kind of as you would for an interview anyways, which is kind of nice. But for this year, they're kind of changing it where for software engineering, it's mandatory. And then for everyone else, it's strongly what's the word? Recommended. Mm-hmm. Yes. And then on top of that, software engineering and systems design will have to do like additional like written questions. But this year as well, it's also they're gonna post the question. Okay. So you can actually prep for it in advance, which is really nice. But as she was kind of saying, don't script it. Like you'll just sound super unnatural. Yeah. And I feel like what was nice about the way that we had it where it was like generated, it's that you have that 20 seconds to prepare, but your most natural self is when you're answering those questions. They're not, I didn't answer mine super formally. I was just talking as if I was talking to like you or like someone else. Yeah. AAF was kind of like, they're also going to post those questions this year. That's kind of new as well. But last year you could probably find them online as well. But I think my biggest thing was trying to figure out how to say what I wanted to say with a character limit, because all these other applications you see are usually word limits. Mm-hmm. I can do a word limit. Like you get that in class and whatever. Yeah. But a character limit is like you don't want to use really big words, but you still want to get your point across. Right. So I definitely looked at a lot of YouTubers would be like, this is what I put on my AF. I didn't use it to like copy what they wrote, but more or less like how did they structure what they wanted to convey, and then kind of did that for my AF. Yeah, that's kind of the tip that I would give for that, just so that you aren't missing what you wanted to say in that short character limit.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. And this is kind of a similar question, but is there anything you wish you knew before you went into the admissions process, the supplementary apps, the SAFAA, anything?
Once again, like something in particular would be just to go and prepared, but not too prepared. Okay. Try to make it seem natural and go in with a positive mindset. I think it's something that many students, including myself, struggle with, is stressing about the outcome. Like, oh, am I really going to be getting in? Will I be getting an offer? What's the end result going to be looking like? Mm-hmm. But instead of treating it as an interview, sure, it was formal. Sure, you had to wear a blazer and a suit for the AFMA, but it was... I treated it more like a casual conversation between myself and the admissions officer, which really helped. Right.
Awesome. And so you didn't have to do a video interview
I didn't have to, but I did.
But you did. Yes. Okay. So do you have anything you wish you knew before filming that?
Probably that it's not that deep. I think I put a lot of like it's still important. Like don't get me wrong. Yeah. Like you still want to like you don't want to not prep for it at all or anything like that, or practice. The practice is definitely worth it, but I think I was really worried that if I stuttered or I said something stupid or this wasn't as relevant to Waterloo, I kind of just said an experience or something like that. I thought that it would like count negatively, but they don't ever count the interview negative towards your application. It's better if you do it than don't do it, because it'll never hurt your application type thing. And they're just kind of trying to see like, not as much detail as your guys', which probably makes a lot more sense, but just like who you are as a person, even through like these simple, short answer questions. So yeah, I probably would have done it a lot sooner. I pushed it off so much because I was like stressing about getting it to the T. Yeah. But I would have just like, okay, practice a couple times one weekend, next weekend, get it done.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because it takes like 5 minutes tops.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you're just showing your personality. Yeah. That's a great tips all around. Awesome. And what sorts of things did you talk about on your AF?
Yeah. I kind of talked about I didn't really have much tech related extracurriculars, as I feel like compared to maybe a lot of people in engineering or in my program in general. So I kind of just focused on the long distance, that's not the right word, but like the extracurriculars that I had for the most amount of time, because I feel like quality is better than quantity. Like I didn't have too much, but the ones that I did have, I've been doing since like pre-pandemic or like grade 10 or something like that. And there's only like 1 or 2 that I started in like grade 12.
Yeah.
Like I think I joined robotics last minute in grade 12 because I was like, I should try it at least.
Yeah.
But I also focused on being self-determined. I think that was a last minute thing that I put in, but I was really proud of putting in, because a lot of like with engineering, how you're taking a lot of courses, and a lot of it's like, because it's your degree, a lot of the side projects or extracurriculars that you choose to be a part of are like outside of classes. They still expect you to do your tests and quizzes and midterms and whatnot and assignments, but like you still want to better yourself for whatever you're trying to be. So being self-driven, I thought would be like a really good thing to put in the additional, it was like additional information section, I think that was like 600 characters long.
Yeah, no, that's great advice. I think a lot of students think that it's important to kind of stack up on every club, sport, whatever, and kind of just join everything. But I really think it's about joining what you're passionate about, because if you're passionate about something, then the experiences and the experiences that you'll gain from those opportunities will allow you to actually have the skills that you need when entering university, rather than just joining everything and not really having any value from any of those. So that's great advice. Yeah, awesome. And okay, so we've talked a little bit about the specifics of like the supplementary applications and all that kind of thing, but I wanted to ask kind of generally, when applying to university in general, could be Waterloo specific, but could be not Waterloo specific, how was the process for you guys? Do you have any tips for students who are currently applying? Do you have anything to share?
I wanted to get them out of the way so fast because applications are somewhat time consuming. Not even that, like, I feel like if you sat down, you're like, I'm going to do the AIF, I'm going to do the interview, like back to back, you'd get it done in like 2 hours tops. But it's like, you want it to be good, right? So you're reviewing it, you're giving it to like your academic advisors. Can you read this over? Even to your parents, can you read this over? Friends, read it to, like, you know, you want it to be really good. So I kind of structured my schedule for first semester. Like, I really thought about this. I structured my schedule for first semester that I had a spare, so that I, instead of having an extra course to do, I just locked in on like doing uni applications, because a lot of them are really repetitive, need references, different schools have different like procedures, and then just kind of familiarize myself with that. So I had it done before first semester. I feel like just getting it out of the way and having it done, because you don't want to rush it closer to the due date, because then it's not going to be your best work. So
that's a great point. And you never know, like, you mentioned like reference letters and stuff. You never know how much time you need to potentially ask someone, get a reference letter. Like, until you really get into it, you're not going to know how much time you need. So yeah, starting early is definitely a really great point. If not for the applications themselves and like scholarships and stuff like that, that's also something you want to look out for.
Yeah, I definitely agree. One thing that I would like to say is just managing your time wisely. So with the piling amount of workload coming in grade 12, and I personally did not take a spare, so that really took a toll, but I made sure I was able to like manage my time wisely. So creating a schedule like you suggested, and not all applications of mine had a supplementary application. Like, for example, some of my backup universities did not have mandatory supplementary applications. They were mainly optional. So where I thought that I would have like a higher chance of getting in, I would just skip the supplementary application and do it for the ones that I'm more closer to, like where my chances of getting in may be less, and where they may need to see my personality in order to determine as to whether I should get an offer or not. So yeah, for Waterloo, I definitely did the supplementary application as well as some of my other top choices. But yeah, creating a schedule was the main thing that allowed me to complete it before the winter break itself.
Yeah, for sure. Managing your time and making sure you keep those deadlines in mind. You don't want to miss anything. I think that would be my biggest advice, is just stay very cautious and start early. Great advice. Okay, so what did it feel like? So Waterloo was both of your top choices. So what did it feel like finally getting that offer from Waterloo?
No, I remember it because I think it got processed. I was going on a band trip. And so I look at it, but like I thought there would be more to the email because all I could see in the email was congratulations, you got in. But I didn't know if it was one of those like promotional join this webinar, we have this thing, or if it was like a
that would be really mean if that was what
so I was like, oh, like what is this? Yeah. So I was like, okay. My whole weekend was like, okay, the band trip was really fun because I was like, oh my gosh, I finally got in because it was the last school I was waiting on as well.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, finally I don't have to like wait in or whatever or send grades or yeah. So that was nice.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, say Waterloo was actually the last school that I was waiting from. I had received everything.
Me too.
My top choice is not here. What should I do?
Yeah.
But luckily it was. I remember so clearly. It was literally the day before March break. And I just came home from school and I received an email which said congratulations.
Yeah.
And I wasn't too sure because I know that they typically send out emails for promotions for like events or marketing or whatever, right? So I didn't really think much of it until I saw that congratulations.
Yeah.
When I saw the congratulations, I immediately opened my email and I read the whole like letter that came with it, and I was so excited. Like I don't think I've ever been that happy.
Yeah, me too. And I think that's a good tip if you're applying or you've applied to Waterloo or you're applying to Waterloo. If it takes a little bit longer than the other ones, don't stress.
Yeah.
You know, you'll get an answer eventually. It might take a little longer, but yeah, don't sweat it. Yeah. Okay. So now that you guys have done the application process, you're already here studying, what are kind of your favorite parts about studying here at Waterloo? Why are you happy to be here? Why are you glad that this was your first choice?
For me, I really like the close community. AFM definitely has a lot of students, but what I really liked about first year was that it was like we had batches set up actually. So a set 30 students would be in the same class and have the exact same schedule for all of their 1A term. So I feel like that really helped create like a close bond between all of us. But generally speaking, I really enjoy the atmosphere that is around here. Like studying on campus is actually one of my favorite things to do. And it's not only because I get to see the people, but it's also just the vibes that I get. The environment
me too.
It's so welcoming. Like coming in straight into orientation, it just felt super welcoming, and I really enjoyed arts orientation as a whole. And we also had an accounting orientation. We had several activities just to make us feel welcome. And I also really appreciated how the professors took things easy in the starting just to ensure that we're able to get the hang of university and then sort of dive into the real feel of university.
For sure.
Yeah, I would definitely say I also love studying on campus a lot. We would like, me and my friends would all go to like different buildings and different days because our classes are largely in the same buildings. So like we just discover new buildings. We just study in the most randomest spots. But I think like I'm really glad that I chose Waterloo, largely as I mentioned before, the cohort system, because you are with the same kind of group of people. I mean, hit or miss, some people might not like it, but I kind of like how like I know everyone knows me. It's like I know I can work on my classwork and stuff like that, or any questions that before asking like a TA or a prof or something, I can ask my friends because they're all doing the same thing at the same time as me. And then I guess like the engineering society, like the community that we have, I know it's like a big thing, like, oh, if you're in like these competitive programs, like you don't have time for anything else, you're only studying, oh, there's so much classes and stuff. And I mean, like, it's all within time management. Like, if you really wanted to study all day, you definitely could. But the way that it's structured, they don't want you to do that. So you can still take part in like student life within engineering. You can still do stuff like around campus as well. But yeah, I really enjoy engineering's part of society because then you meet people in different programs, and oftentimes when you're in the same cohort, you don't actually know what's going on inside another program in engineering and how similar or different you could be. So it's really cool to meet other people that way as well. And yeah, I think the whole vibe of that is like makes it enjoyable.
And I'd imagine the cohort system makes it a lot easier to make friends also, because then you're with the same people all the time. That would be nice. No, this was also my first choice. I love being in the Waterloo kind of atmosphere. I feel like there's just an energy that I don't know if that makes sense, but I feel like there's an energy that just feels like it feels like home. And I think, are we all in third year? Second year. Okay, yes. So I've been here for like 3 years now, and it definitely is very comfortable, very easy. And yeah, I'm always finding random spots to study in. I live on, actually I won't say where I live, but me and my friends study in E7 all the time, which is interesting because none of us are in engineering.
But that's just the way
it's such a pretty building, and a lot of the engineering buildings are gorgeous. So
I also study in Hagee all the time too.
Yeah,
sometimes.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, there's sometimes you just sometimes you just want to be in like a different atmosphere, and you can be because there's so many study spots everywhere. So it's really easy. But yeah, awesome. But yeah. Thank you so much for joining me today. You guys had so much great information. I'm sure we helped so many high school students who are planning to apply this year or in future years. So thank you so much. But yeah, this was a great end to our episode. And we'll see you later. Bye, Future Warriors.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Hello Warrior podcast, and we hope this gave you a lot of really good insider scoop on how to apply to the University of Waterloo and all of our admission requirements.
Yeah, and if you are applying to any programs outside the Faculty of Engineering, be sure to apply by January 31st and submit all your documents by February 14th. And if you are applying to a program within the Faculty of Engineering, be sure to apply by January 15th and submit all your documents by January 31st.
And hopefully you got some really great tips on all things the AIF, the optional online interview, and all those other supplemental and optional things that need to be added to your application for some programs. And if you still have some questions, feel free to reach out to us and email us at liaison@uwaterloo.ca.
If you want to connect with a current student and get their thoughts on any programs that you're interested in, check out the link in the description to connect with a current student. And we also have a ton of tips from our current students on our student blog, The Missing Manual, so be sure to check that out as well.
And if you're not yet subscribed to our mailing list, please be sure to do that. And as always, be sure to follow us on Instagram, U of Waterloo Future. And we'll be taking a break from recording and uploading over the holidays, and we'll be back in February for our next episode on paying for university and all things finance. So we'll see you then, Future Warriors.
Bye-bye.
Bye.